traditional skills on the land and the Inuvialuktun language should be being taught to the children by the young parents and the adults. These should also be taught by the elders who are the base of this knowledge. These important issues will be discussed on the third and final edition of the Inuvialuktun Language Conference. Welcome to TAMAPTA. I'm Leonard Harry.
A generation gap is and has been the problem ever since our native cultures were introduced to the white society. Many benefits have been brought to the north. In gaining modern technology from the south, our native heritage has been greatly sacrificed. The loss is most evident in statistics given by the 1989 Legislative Assembly's annual report. It states that out of all Inuit within the north who attend schools, only 20% graduate. Furthermore, statistics put together by the Canadian Mental Health Association shows that about 52% to 57% out of 100,000 young people take their lives within the NWT and the Yukon. This is due to their loss of identity and not being able to fit into their communities when they return from high school or when they drop out. At the Inuvialuktun Language Conference last March in Inuvik, delegates felt that through school involvement, proposed community programs, that these statistics would go down.
I think the incentive was that they realize we are losing our language, and that's a big incentive there alone, that to us our language identifies us, our culture identifies us, and if we lose that, we'll always be in our people would always be at risk, whether it's suicide, whether it's the lack of competing in the work world.
The most significant thing that I picked up from the meeting was the frustration that's underlying everything, that we have not, the system itself has not given status to Inuvialuktun, to Inuvialuit history, the contributions of Inuvialuit people to the history of this area particularly, but also to the contributions to the whole of the Northwest Territories. And that, I think, underlies everything, and that's something I think that was brought home to me during this meeting.
Night class came up, I thought, oh boy, end of the year I should be speaking pretty good. But it's not like that.
Agalan ilihimarunga tamatko ili chupiaktot ili hautiruni ili chuvialuktun.
Tuli makitatawaqtuut uqawsuut nungut qungit kuptiik pisalatiptingni naalaungit kaluaqtilluginnu taqqawut ilissautiniak saqivut.
Inupetin bilihimagala miyunguqatlagala miyunga iliaqhaaqhiruni inupeugalaahne nut kapiktaanaqune qa malaqungwa qamnuk qaaqhiruatiniliruaq.
When one of the elders said, when they started the daycare, they talked only in Inuvialuktun to the kids. When they came in, and the kids sort of looked at them like this, you know, because to our kids it's a foreign language.
He asked to pass Dougie. I passed him the sugar. I passed him everything on a table but the salt.
It's hard for us to talk. I know it's easy for the younger kids, but it's hard for us because we're more grown up and we know more English and we went to school. They're really interested in what we feel about our language and everything.
What do you feel about the language?
What I feel about the language? I feel embarrassed because I don't even know how to speak it. I know some people could speak it, but me, I just lost. I'm lost without it. Can't communicate with my grandmother. Can't communicate with nobody. just to the kids.
We have to try to survive as a whole people, as you know. I think it's important, but hopefully after we put in a committee together, and through that, at least it's a start. We'll start, you know, being more concerned about things that are happening around us and not get so caught up in a white man's world that we forget our own. I think we have to save it.
Like I understand it, not, but when I try to talk it, not. I could say a few words and not, but my tongue just sort of start going crazy on me.
Yutakhat kalila ni kangak siswitualwad ukawsi milanganik ukakabigilla yugaklugit ima ukawsaktamna atumaniaklug piwakkapko uingayak pagtudilani ukangnia sukuyukkangamik ukallaktaraw plutillo iklaksimagalwaklutik.
Once when I'm working in the hospital and Mabel Stevenson is there, and I always go visit her, and she always speaks to me in Inuvialuktun. Some words I can't understand, but some words I could understand really clearly, and we always laugh together and talk together and that, and I'm really glad today that I'm starting to learn more, and I could start understanding the older people today, and I'm really thankful for that.
A lot of you, I've worked with the elders in the communities, and that's how I've learned what little Inuvialuktun I know, and I'm very proud of it. And there's lots of you Nanaks and Dadaks here who know that I could speak a little bit of Inuvialuktun, but sometimes you laugh at me, but that's okay. What I'd just like to say is that I think it's very important that we as young parents learn to speak the language, because when we get older, our kids are going to wonder, what's this language all about? They're going to say, what are those people speaking? They won't know. So I think it's very important that we as young people take as much opportunity as we could to sit with our elders, talk with them, even though you don't understand them, just sit with them and let them tell you stories. That's how you learn. I know I myself, I learned through many years of working with Inuvialuit elders, not only Inuvialuit, but Itqilik too, because my mom's Itqilik, and I learned to speak her language as well. And I'm very proud of it. What I'd just like to say is, I know Lillian's going to laugh, but at the office we always tease each other. Me, Rose, and Lillian, we always tease each other, and every day when I'm going to talk to them, I always say, Sunagok tamat ko. When I get older, I don't want to only know that. So, so as much as we can, we should learn to speak the language, so that when we get older, our kids, if I talk to them when I'm a nanak, I might say Sunagok tamat ko, and they're going to say what you said. So you know, it's. I think it's very important that we who don't really know how to speak the language, that we try as hard as we can, because someday we're going to be the leaders. We're going to be sitting around this table talking like you guys here.
And when our young people feel emotional, they feel that hurt inside, their voice shake, because they know how deeply it hurts from the inside not to be able to talk with you. I think we've come to the stage in Inuvialuktun where we have to sit down and work together. We have to say, okay, we don't look at how you speak the dialect, how my dialect is different than yours, we're going to sit down and say, okay, this is our language, something my parents have given me, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. Let's do something about it. Let's save it.
But he wouldn't speak. But it made him excited that, you know, when he was in a large group that people were talking in Inuvialuktun, that he was able to understand. Some people don't mind being laughed at. I think our young people have to realize too that a lot of times the elders don't laugh at them, you know, but what they're giving the elders is a chance to be happy, you know. Maybe they're laughing with the pride that you're trying something that, you know, you haven't bothered to try for years, or that you've never bothered to try in your life. So I think our young people have to learn to expect these things to happen. It's just a natural way of life with people. And maybe they themselves look at raising their children differently from the way they're treated.
Native parents today are respective of their Inuvialuit culture and language?
Yes, I think so, and I think they are very proud of their heritage.
Do you think they instill still these feelings into their children today?
Unfortunately, I don't think so, because even with myself, when a kid comes home from school and asks you a question or tells you something in English, it's so easy to answer them back in the same, in Inuvialuktun, it's so easy to talk to them in English because that's the language that they know best. And unfortunately, a lot of parents like myself are not taking the time at home to teach and try to talk to their children in their own language.
Aku takawut ukang naluk kan nguhung ne aurut inyu hekpot idna agiliu tidanik hunik pikchali aulugit inyu hekpot ukau tigilu nutakap talun ni ma beopta tudi chap talun ni idna kangikput ilihi magayarat ilokata makpera rekote ilokata taningite tait na hoting adro ngakpak tut kangiting agalak himap lugit tut kok himahop lugit kangi wutaw kan nguhunga yakota okakota maunga agalak kupdiu kan nguhunga yakota hamanyu migilon igilalaga yaktakemma tayo ko migilon ni imalon ni pikchahan yung itaw tukumig ingming yun ninyo itaw tuktak higumig dutakawut ilit kaya ang naktut igipea alugo inyo pia okaw hiya piga yaichut tabra pik makperaru kami pikchau kami huna tautuk tuat kliaro naktok kangeka amanilamik
isimawut soanga silugo sivamuk tuvialukupta aglalayu adlumakuat ikayok tigilugid ubagut okhalayugud Inuvialuktun okhalayugud ikayok tiro aoptale aglalayu annik tajwak huyagni aloga.
Certainly the federal government believed that there was no future in the Aboriginal way of life. And really the state that we are in now originates from that kind of thinking. In the early 1970s, there was a bit of change, and the educators in the Northwest Territories thought, well, there is a place for Aboriginal languages. We'll add it on to what's there. We'll add it on to the English system of schooling. But I think that too is the wrong way of thinking. The people who are being served by schools have a right to have their own language and their own history and their own values integrated into everything in that school. Perhaps I can put it in a different way. Children, when they go into a school, ought to be able to feel that they are important, their language is important. They ought to be able to see their language in the school, in the classrooms. They ought to be able to hear their own language. They have a right, and parents have a right. So we have to find a way of using the staff and the money that's there so that we can achieve that.
Procedures and the proper channels does this group have to go through within the government to make their plans happen, to make the government say, like, yes, we do have to change, and we have to change soon?
Mm-hmm. Some of that change is already taking place. We have a system of teaching and learning centers now set up across the Northwest Territories in each linguistic area, and they are doing tremendous work in developing Aboriginal literature. One board, for example, has published 114 children's books in the last year and a half. So I think we are seeing a breakthrough.
Do you find that this region kind of stands out as opposed to the Sawtooth, to the Kitikmeot region, to the Bath and northern Quebec? Like we're kind of like the needle in the haystack, kind of?
No, I don't think so. I think even with a meeting like this, people are making their voice heard. I don't think the voice was heard loudly enough. It wasn't loud enough, that voice, in the past, but I think it will be heard now as a result of this kind of action here.
There are very few who are determined in keeping and passing on the language. Even if they are a few out of hundreds, it's a start.
1983 mingani di lihak kahlunga hitay ma 1985 man kihani kubunga wap ko lahiranga ahita bra si hamani ukiuni kanunga iliharabik panguni liharak takalwakta nga akyak tikray chub lunga ahin nabwa tatkhiuti inna tatkhiuti malik tu ahli lihari raktu ahin tabak kanulakuma akyak tihrachunga pangmapak ubanin muranga kama inyipet ilihari uktat ilakkinyak tuarlunga ilihakahutin ilihakaminguba akyak lanayaran nga akyak tihram nigilibak lakalohlo nga piranga habat kalo aglibalahutin nutakhat 100 hipit luwit then nakalunga tabay kayok takakok kalwakta nga ili tamakwa din yung piyata ili haring mga kuming pangmapakawla ka niya nakhikalwakay iho makalwakta nga li ili haw tinagot kamay niyo piyatun hukyak ili haw tiwakaluwid yung siktay nanutim agalin niya ako taano nakuna yaktok tan ngit kiusik nutak hating tan ngugalwak tiluwid ili haw tiwakakagay I'm
really concerned about the little kids going to school and learning Inuvialuktun and not being able to go home and talk their own language at home. A couple of years ago, one of my grandsons went home from school after having Inuvialuktun classes with Rosie. And he ran into the house and said to his mom and dad, and he said it really good so you could understand it. But his parents knew when he said Ting Mirualuk, they knew that with a plain, but they didn't know what he was saying about Mitchavik. And this is the sort of thing that I'm concerned about, because they phoned me and I told them to bring him up to the house, our house, right away. And when he came in and told me that, because I understood him right away, his face just brightened up right away, and he was really happy because somebody understood what he was talking about. But I think until we get young adults, and I really believe that if it gets into the high school, then we are getting young adults to learn the language, and maybe this is something that would catch on. But until we have some system in place where these little kids can use their language every day, when they not just learn it in school, but come out and use it outside of the school. Because I don't think it matters what language you're talking about. If you're not able to use that language all the time, you just can't keep it. This is the first language workshop I've attended within this region, and I really hope that it doesn't stop here. I hope we can make plans at this workshop so that we can carry out our plans and get something going, because among an awful lot of people, as well as myself, we've been talking about our language for years. But if you just sit and talk about it and then go out and forget about it after you get home, it's something that's really hard to work on. It's something that you have to keep going at.
I'm a product of the system. I lived in a hostel for 10 years. Lost the language. I can understand a bit, but I've lost it. As a graduate at TEP and as a teacher, we have wasted a lot of time. There's been a lot of discussion going on. We've got to sit down, we've got to decide what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and we have to do it. There's no two ways about it.
Many program ideas were recommended during the 3-day conference. These are just recommendations, which can only work once the communities have the initiative to take the ideas and make them into programs. The recommendations set down for the young people's programs and the symptoms of language loss were as follows. Elders work with the youth, show them how to work together to grow towards being a leader within the community. Elders and youth have to work together to plan programs for the year that will help both the young and old understand each other's way of learning about our language and culture. Tapes of elder stories from long ago should be made in each community and available to the young people as a resource in their community. The community should teach their young children as part of growing up to respect their community, identity, and elders. Everybody has to work together in families because today the children and young parents have a very important role to play in society. Without each other, they cannot survive. Therefore, it is important to have this closeness to succeed in a changing society. A lot of young people drop out of schools because they are lonely and cannot cope with the Southern style of teaching and discipline in the school in our region. If there was more emphasis put on native language and culture in the schools, then maybe our young people would not drop out of school and would be eager to continue, knowing that they are learning something about themselves, their language and culture, and their land that they grew up with. Recommendations for the home elder programs. Home elder programs be established in each community where young people can go to learn their language, or young parents and their children go to home elder programs to learn their language. The Inuvialuktun Social Development Program should provide monies for someone to teach our people the new writing system in order to learn more about our language and culture. The Inuvialuktun writing system is important to learn if you want to learn more about the language and terminology. The Home Elders program will help both the elders and youth learn from each other about new words and how to pronounce them. In this way, we can pass this on to our children to help them learn not only in school, but also at home with our elders' guidance. Recommendations for Native Studies terminology. There is a critical need for Inuvialuktun Terminology Conference immediately to develop Inuvialuktun terms for English words, both old and new. Our dialects have not grown over the years because of no support from the Inuit Cultural Institute. The dictionaries developed by COPE are not complete. New dictionaries should be developed. Culture and communications, interpreter translators must be trained and should work with the elders and youth to develop terminology at the terminology conference. Photographs depicting Inuvialut history be developed to use in the schools to teach our children about our history, language, and culture. The Inuvialuktun Critical Stage Committee consists of 1 delegate and 1 alternate from each of our 6 communities. Elected chairperson is Peter Esau from Sax Harbor. Vice chairperson is Rini Airy from Aklavik. Secretary-treasurer Sandra Ipana from Inuvik. Board member Edward Rubin from Polituk. Raymond Mangalana of Tuk. And Annie Goose from Holman.
I remember when we were having these night classes, we would go to old folks' home to Ida Rogers and Sadie Simon. We would go sit with them, and these were the better parts of the classes, I believe. We would sit with them and they would tell us stories of long ago and all what happened long ago, things that we didn't know about. And if we wanted to ask them a question, we had to say it in Eskimo like Gina or Kanok, or how, what, where, when. And they wouldn't answer us unless we said it in our language. So that if we wanted to know something, we really had to ask in our language. We had to make an effort. We just couldn't say, well, who did this, or who did that, or who was it? They wouldn't hear us. And so it really made us try harder. And those were the times that I think I was able to use my language more. And they never laughed at us. Sometimes I'm shy to use my language around people because they laugh at us. So a lot of times we just use it for joking around, just like for deducking. And we should be using it more seriously.